Dallas Cowboys, we have a serious problem. We need to address the defensive tackle position in quick, fast, and a hurry. This position group has been one of the most neglected position groups in Dallas Cowboys history. And one can point it to be one of the perennial reasons why we have not made it to the NFC Championship game, or why we have not competed for a Super Bowl in general. When you look back over the years, just over the past decade, maybe even 2, even 3 decades, it's a position group that has been a constant need, and we've been neglecting it year after year. And one might say, Lou, haven't we put resources to this position group? And my answer is, we have, but it was very irresponsible how we put those resources to this position group. There is a certain way how you handle this position. Everyone else in the league, especially people who have constant high-level DT play, they follow this formula, but the Cowboys seem to beat to their own drum, and it's very budgetized in that form of harmony. Let's deep dive into the mindset of why are we like this. So, as you know, the Dallas Cowboys are a draft and develop franchise. Let's be real. I'll be real in this video. I'm not going to be always the guy who constantly, would poop on the front office organization. They are among the best when it comes to draft and developing, when finding the talent, finding cornerstones, finding Hall of Famers, and even more in general, having a clear visualization for some guys, changing positions, moving them from one position to another, and having them being birthed into a Hall of Fame career. The Dallas Cowboys are some of the best, if not the best, when it comes to draft and developing talent, and constantly, every so often, finding keystone gems in the back of rounds. They are some of the best, not to mention the undrafted world. The Cowboys are some of the best when doing this. But here's where the flaw comes in, because in the midst of all of this, you having constant success, you being the franchise, that can draft and develop almost any player, turn a diamond into a rough, get the rough out of a diamond. Arrogance, pride is born within that. And thus the philosophy sentence is born: we can solve every problem with a draft pick. This is what Stephen Jones lived by. This is a quote from his playbook. We pick him, we gotta play him. It's another problem, but this is for another day. And then, not to mention, this has really came to the forefront after the GM, or the acting GM powers without the title, Will McClay, came into the mix, and he started having hit after hit after hit. This just added more fuel to the flame of that pride and that arrogance being in that philosophy for team building. This plays right into Stephen Jones' hands. He's a guy who always wanted to prioritize budget. What is the cheapest of cheapest ways to team build? Draft picks. There's allocated budget. There's flexible contracts. There's the constant reminder that, hey, we can move on from a player and just draft somebody to replace them. And we're just that is good at it. That becomes your team building one-on-one. And this breeds another problem where we Cowboys fans get mad at, is that they rely on the draft and avoid free agents to a degree. And so, it seems like when every issue comes about, they solve with a draft pick. You want to fix the run game? Draft pick, draft pick, draft pick. You want to fix leadership? Draft pick. Pass rush? Look, he's playing another position. Draft pick. Even run defense. Draft pick. Whoa. No, wait, hold up. This is where the system fails, in this position group right here. This fails because we misunderstand the development for every position. DT is one of the most developmental positions in sports, and you can compare it to other professional sports. For instance, like the NBA, their most developmental position is the center position. Tall, powerful. Yeah, one must been able to develop more strength coming from the college ball, dealing with guys who are not that big and dealing with grown men. And most of all, the mental aspect, knowing to be in what position you need to be in to put your team in the best success. That's the biggest thing that centers need to develop. Defensive tackles or nose tackles is the exact same thing, the exact same roadblocks. It's funny enough, defensive tackles coming from college, they're a lot stronger than their average, contemporary. They can get away with any move. A lot of them play out of structure, don't have a clear plan. A lot of them just went off pure athleticism. They don't know how to properly, be engaged in where to be when the ball is being hiked. These are the different roadblocks that have to be learned over time, and it's so much that is being taken in this position that a lot of people really don't understand. And of course, there are outliers to this rule in basketball, even in NFL with nose tackles. And the guys who are the outliers who come in, whether in the NBA or in NFL, and you hit the ground running, 9 times out of 10, that is a guy who's on a Hall of Fame pace or is just a freak of nature. But if you're wondering how long does a nose tackle or defensive tackle take to develop, shout out to Boss Cowboys Sports. He put the perfect measuring stick, 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years is how long typically nose tackles and defensive tackles need in order to catch up and produce and help their team out at the highest way possible. The problem with the Dallas Cowboys, remember, we go back to the issue. We can solve every issue with a draft pick. If we're picking you, we expect you to solve that issue, and we don't have time for you to develop because the issue is still here. The Cowboys expect fast ROI, and in this position group, it often get disappointed because we move too quickly. And it really goes into another flaw of the Dallas Cowboys. It's the evaluation process. And a lot of people don't really understand, but since we draft and develop, we typically don't want to pay our guys until we can see that they fully develop and we can get our good ROI on them. That's why we take the longest to pay all of our players, including our superstars, because we literally evaluate every single year since they come into the league up until the extension point. And that's what we take into negotiations. And the similar thing is done, of course, with defensive tackle. But if you're going off the Boss Cowboy, metric of 3 to 5 years, if you don't understand contracts, the first round picks, they typically get a 4-year contract with a 5th-year option. If the defensive tackle take 3 to 5 years, now you're not going to see, based off the development, your ROI in time. Or if you do see your ROI, you don't trust it because you don't see enough. Do you see how flawed that can be for a position group like defensive tackle? So the Cowboys are in this never-ending cycle of constantly trying to find the answer to this position group. But I just told you about spending a first-round resource on this group. But everyone should get the same amount of timeline, 3 to 5 years. Second, third round players, their contracts get shorter and shorter. So there's not enough time to fully get them developed. But here in Dallas, we move on from those guys when their contract is up and we don't see the ROI immediately. That's why we are in this continual cycle when we are really the problem. We have an endless list of defensive tackles that we have moved on, and in my opinion, moved on entirely too fast because they end up going to the very next spot and actually contributing at a high level. And most people think, man, they just go and play somewhere. They never wanted to be a Cowboy. No, you didn't wait on their development. That's the problem. And if you actually waited on their development, you would have solved and reaped the benefits of the resources you put into their development. So Lou, what is the solution to this? How do we fix this? Well, let's first see the blueprint, because there's, like I said before, other teams who have, they understand and they're fully aware of how long it takes to develop, and they have a blueprint to win. I made a list with ChatGPT, cross-referencing a metric for yards per carry, because I believe that's the best metric to measure a run defense, and cross-referencing with the defensive tackles they had on the roster and what year they were in. So at the top of the list over the past 3 years, you see a lot of names that are very familiar. Yes, there's high defensive tackle play, but the common thing I want y'all to see from this list is that all of these guys are tenured veterans. That is the main thing that I want you to take into account. Each team at least has 1, sometimes even 2 tenured veterans, 4, 6, 8, 10-year veterans on their team, and they're at the top of the league when it comes to defending the run in a yards per carry basis. One may think this is an outlier pattern, but we take it with our metric before of saying that the defensive tackles, and we know this position takes the longest to develop, and we give them a 3 to 5 window to develop. It's not hard to see that people at the top of the league actually have defensive tackles who are well past that window and fully developed, fully in their man body, able to understand where they are on the field and contribute to their team at a very high level. So Luke, what do? Do they draft? Yes, they draft, but the proper way you're supposed to do it, when you take even a first round D tackle, you never play him immediately. You stash him not 1 below, but 2 below. So maybe as the 3rd and 4th defensive tackle, have him basically have a red shirt year in the NFL, or 2, let him learn behind guys who have done it before, teach them. It's the position of humbling, because they came into the league doing whatever they can, and now they get into the league and they're going to get humbled, because like I said, there's a lot more they need to learn about their position to even contribute, not be at the top, but to even contribute to this team. So what do the Cowboys need to take away from this? It's easy. We cannot be cheap with this position group, meaning we can't have the mindset of solving this issue with the draft pick. You can be a draft and develop team, but if you truly want to make an effort to stop the run, take a look at the teams at the top of the league, what they're doing. They are bringing in outside help to help nurture your pride possession or your prize room and help them, coach them up, limit their reps so they don't temper the expectations for the player, so they can actually be developing their confidence as well. Veteran mentorship is important, and front office patience is even more important, because like I said, this position right here is vital to stopping the run. And if you want to truly stop the run, you cannot be cheap and half do the contracts of what you've been doing before. Yes, it's worked, but it's not what is going to get you through this position group. You have to imitate guys at the top of the league who are doing it and doing it well. There are teams who always have great defensive tackles, and they run this exact same playbook. And we're forced to do this because what we've been doing in the past clearly hasn't worked. All it got in us is the same hole that's been here since the beginning of time. So Cowboy Nation, my decree for this team is to not walk out the rookie that we drafted in the 7th round out onto the field and ask him to defend the run, because no other team has asked their team to do that. Only teams that has happened for and it worked out for them, Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald. Freaks of nature. That's been my time, Cowboy Nation. Like, comment, share this content. We need to push this so we can get it to the front office, so we can actually break the cycle and stop the damn run. Peace.